Alrighty, everybody, let's get started. Welcome to tonight's call. Glad to have you guys on it. We're going to be talking about, well, this is one of the other continuations of the experiences that we had at convention. So we're going to be continuing that topic. Sorry, I'll turn off my air conditioner. You can turn that fan off too. So this one, we're going to be talking about the class that Dana and I went to that was entitled The Four Tendencies. Vanessa Romero taught that class. And I've heard her speak, her and her husband, before. She is actually very entertaining to watch. And it's interesting, when I took this class, I was wondering, like, why is this even important? Why is this a class that they have featured at convention? Which is mainly the reason why I took it. So I'm not going to do a lot of talking because I want to get more into some discussion, because I really feel like the benefit of this class comes into understanding your tendency, how to work with that tendency, and how it applies to you and your Young Living business. So I do hope to get some feedback from you ladies and see what we can help everyone to learn and grasp. So I'll start with the very basics. So Vanessa talked about the four tendencies. The four tendencies are upholder, questioner, rebel, and obliger. And I don't want people to misconstrue this to be that these are different personality types. It is your tendency is how you meet certain expectations. So your inner and outer expectations. By inner, I mean what you expect of yourself, what standards you set for yourself, and obviously by outer, the expectations that people place upon you. So let's start by talking about what the four tendencies are. So when I mentioned the upholder meets inner and outer expectations. They love rules, having a clear plan, and are self-motivated and disciplined. Clearly tell them what needs to be done, and they'll lead the way. I'm looking for the people that have their cameras on, because I'm looking to see if people nod their head. As one thing I will say that's interesting about this, even when I went to Vanessa's class, and Dana and I have just recently completed the book, you will find yourself nodding probably in agreement when it comes to your tendency. That's kind of a tell. But if you haven't taken the opportunity, and you can actually do it if you want to by multitasking, take the quiz that's on Gretchen Rubin's website at gretchenrubin.com. She's got the four tendency quiz if you want to find out what your tendency is, and I'd like to hear your feedback on it. Questioners. What's that? Oh. So questioners meet their own expectations, but they resist outer expectations. They need to see the purpose and reason in anything that they do. Make it clear why what you want from them is important, and then they will do it. I will go ahead and chime in. I actually came back. Oh, thank you for putting that in. So it's in the link to the quiz is actually in the chat. I am actually a questioner. So feel free to relay either in the chat or when you chime in what your tendency is if you already know. But yeah, we have to understand why we're being asked to do something. I do think it was interesting. Vanessa used an example in her class where she said she would ask her son to go pick up a package for her. Like, I guess at their building, their packages are delivered downstairs and they're not delivered to the door. So she knows that her son, who's a little bit older, he is a questioner. So she can say to him, like, hey, can you go downstairs and pick up my package? And all this time will go by and it won't get done. But when she explained, like, hey, can you go pick up my package? I have my ER orders in there, and I really want to be able to do maybe a Facebook Live, and I need those items so I can do it. By giving him the reason, she's like, he responds to it like every single time. And to me, I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. Why are we doing things without knowing the reason why we're doing them? You know, but it resonated with me. So hands down, I am a questioner. You may have other tendencies that you tip towards, which usually will be the adjacent tendency, one of the adjacent tendencies. So I can tell you that I am not an obliger. I'm a questioner that leans towards rebel. So every now and then I tip towards rebel. And we'll talk about what that means in just a little bit. Obligers. Obligers meet people's expectations easily, but they struggle with their own. They must be held accountable by a friend, coach, or boss to get things done, and they thrive when they have a sense of duty and can work in a team. So really quickly, I want to go back for a minute and chime in because one of the things that Vanessa mentioned, your tendency kind of has a bearing on how, I don't want to say how well you do in this business, but how easy certain things may come to you within your Young Living business. So she gave an example that the upholder, because they can meet their inner and outer expectations more easily than say like a rebel, and they clearly understand what needs to get done, they get it done, they do very, very well in this business because when things need to get done, they get done. Whereas a questioner, we struggle a little bit more because of the simple fact that we feel like we need to know everything and we need to have valid reasons for doing it, which can cause like analysis paralysis. So we don't do anything because we don't know everything that we feel that we need to know. But on the flip side, once a questioner decides that I have all of the information that I need and the valid reasons for doing something, it's not hard to get them to actually move and actually accomplish it. So all of these, no tendency is better than the other. All have strengths and weaknesses. This is just to help you understand what your tendency is and some of the challenges you might have in your professional life and even in your business and social life as a result of what your tendency is. So lastly, let's talk rebels. Rebels defy both outer and inner expectations. And above all, they want to be free to choose and express their own individuality. Give them facts, present the task as a challenge, and let them decide without pressure. So I know for a fact, I just saw in the chat, somebody on here is a rebel. Was it Kate?
Yeah, she said she's a obliger.
Oh, you're a rebel that leans towards obliger. That's interesting. So the rebels, Vanessa talked about, kind of have a struggle in this business because they don't like to be put in a box, so to speak, or don't like to be painted with one individual brush. So she was saying that like maybe in dealing with upline leadership, they're like, you need to go out and talk to people. That's how you're successful in this business. And because that's the expectation that's been set, they're like, nope, I don't want to do that. Because for them, if it doesn't feel like it's their choice, they're not going to do it. Same thing with not meeting their inner expectations. So if what they feel like doing doesn't meet the expectation that they set for themselves, they're not going to do it either. So just something to understand about the rebels. Let's take a minute. Let's go ahead and open it up to those on the call. Go ahead and share what your tendency is, and then we'll get a little bit deeper into how to deal with certain tendencies and how to help it assist you in your business. So I'll go ahead and open it up and let you guys chime in. I feel like something's about to be very interesting. So, okay, so I will say this. If you have not had a chance to take the quiz, go ahead and take it. One thing I did want to touch on, and I think me and Tashina were talking about this earlier. So the majority of the people who took Gretchen's quiz, they came back obligers. Obligers are the largest group of tendency holders within the 4 tendencies. Followed by that, the second largest was questioners, with upholders and rebels being the smaller percentage. So maybe I'm making an observation that maybe I have some obligers on the line.
I'll start.
Go ahead. Oh, Tashina found the percentages. Sweet. Okay, 41% obligers, 24% questioners. Well, go ahead.
Okay, so I'll start. When I took the test, I came out an obliger. But it's interesting because as I reread the book, I actually feel like I lean very, very close to an upholder, if not being an upholder. But if I'm an upholder, I feel like I lean to obliger. And if I'm an obliger, I lean towards upholder. there anything else I was supposed to say?
No. I just wanted you to share what that is, and then we'll address it. I definitely, granted, I can't speak for you, but being that I live and work with you, I feel like you're probably more of an upholder that leans towards an obliger. Carrie says, apparently I'm a rebel, but I question that result.
So she's a rebel that leads to questioner.
That's possible. That's possible. Has anyone seen the result? Has anyone actually taken the quiz?
Cindy says she thinks she's a rebel.
Melissa, you have? Melissa, what did you come back as?
I came back as an obliger, but I didn't notice what I had a tendency to lean towards. I must have missed that part.
So the quiz doesn't actually reveal what tendency you lean towards, but
Okay.
I found that it was easier. We were just talking about this not too long ago. I feel like it's easier to pick out which one you might lean towards if you read the book or listen to the book.
Okay.
And as you're reading, if you're nodding your head to a certain section that you didn't test as your dominant tendency, you probably lean that way. I personally, when Vanessa was explaining the different tendencies in her class, I thought I was a questioner. Like, I kind of felt that was probably more me. When I actually dove into the book and got to the section on rebels, even though my wife has told me for years that I display rebel qualities, I'm like, nope, I don't have enough information that says that that's me. But as I was listening to the audio book and got to the rebel section, I'm like, yep, absolutely, that makes sense. So, I mean, that for me was a good barometer to be able to tell. Go ahead, Jenny.
Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Okay, I'm an obliger, and I read the book a while back, so I don't remember exactly all of it, but even refreshing and going over it, that's why I have a hard time, following through and getting things done, being here by myself. Like, the classes I've done have been when people were going to do them with me, and they held me to it, and then I would do it if someone was expecting me to, but when I'm just doing it on my own, I have a harder time getting it scheduled and making it happen. So I'm totally an obliger, and I don't know.
Okay. So
that's all.
Jenny's an obliger. Melissa's an obliger. Do we have any other obligers on the line besides Dana, who tips towards obliger? Okay.
Dana is way too agreeable to be an upholder. She's obliger, definitely tipping towards upholder. Because upholders are like, they don't budge. Like, they're strictly by the rules. She's without a doubt an obliger that leans towards upholder.
I question that.
And I'm a questioner towards upholder.
No, I can see that. You say you're a questioner that leans towards upholder?
Yep.
Yeah.
Because that was the same way. Like, Gretchen Rubin is an upholder, and like a lot of this. So I just listened to the book before, Better Than Before, and a lot of the strategies that she mentions for upholders work very, very well for me.
Okay. So very briefly then, because I want to make sure that each tendency gets some time to shine, we'll talk about some of the strengths and weaknesses of those tendencies. So the obliger, because that was the first one that we came across, and we do have a couple of obligers. In this business, she mentioned that you're going to struggle with kind of having a sense of direction. And, well, go ahead.
I was going to add to that, too. When I took her class, too, she did say, and it's funny because I kind of teared up a little bit. She was like, obligers have the hardest time with multi-level marketing companies. Like, not that they can't be successful, but she was saying that they do have the hardest time because it's always about everybody else. Whereas to a certain extent, you need to be somewhat self-motivated. But I do appreciate she put some things in there to help you, have accountability.
So I'll give you a common example of how having an obliger tendency in this business could hurt you, even though you have the best intentions. So let's say that somebody comes to you and you've talked to them about oils before and they haven't gotten their own kit, and they're like, I just want to order from you. Can you just put can you just put this oil on your order and then I'll pick it up from you? An obliger will say, oh, okay, I want to help this individual. Yeah, that's no problem. Even though they're not thinking about the fact that they're going to lose money, because that's not the way that the system is designed to work. But they also then have to ensure that the person gets it. So you now have to play delivery man. And ultimately, it is a sacrifice of yourself so that this person, so that you can help this person. So that was one example that she gave. But in multi-level marketing, like for obligers, like they have to feel part of a team. They have to be rallied. She also gave the example, Gretchen Rubin gave the example of like a writer who worked for a publishing company who may have been very, very good at their job, and then they decide to go on their own, and all of a sudden they're like, I can't write. I can't find the motivation to write. And it's because they had that accountability there that was actually forcing them to stay motivated. Ironically, obligers team very, very well with rebels. Believe it or not. Yeah, that sounds weird. It sounded weird to me when I first heard it, but rebels kind of like to take charge themselves and not necessarily always telling people what go rebels. Not necessarily always telling people what to do, but they do pair very, very well with obligers, because if a rebel tells you like this is okay, like we need to do this, then an obliger is more likely to follow. So think about how that may help you within your business. Now we have a couple of people who are on the call who listed that they are rebels. You have Carrie, you were a rebel, right? And Kate, you guys both listed that you were rebels. I tip towards rebel every once in a while. If you are an obliger and you know that you have someone who displays rebel tendency, unfortunately, yes. No, it's not a bad thing. One tendency is not better than the other. But this is where the strength of knowing people's tendencies comes in handy, because if you know somebody's tendency, you know which one works well with you. So you obligers, if you can find a rebel to partner with and get some kind of direction, that will be able to help you in this business. Now, I will say for the rebel is a little hard to follow because they're not always going to be consistent. They may be all over the place, because the moment that someone says that such and such a person is so good at this, they should continue to do that, they are going to push back, because they're like, hey, don't paint me with that brush. You don't know me. That's not who I am. And they will change like that. So just be aware of that. But obligers, you will tie very, very well with rebels. Let's see. So we had some rebels on the call as well. Right? If you guys want to go ahead and share, what was has anyone like actually read their profile for the rebel? I am a chameleon in Myers-Briggs. So now I'm starting your statement, Carrie. I'm starting to wonder if you might be a questioner. And the reason
go ahead. More questioner personally.
Kate, you lean more towards questioner?
No, I think Carrie does. She's my sister, so I know her pretty well.
You think she leans more? So her statement is funny, because Gretchen Rubin actually has an app that's on the Play Store and the App Store on Apple. And she says whatever Kate says. One of the articles that I was looking at says, what if I believe that I display all 4 tendencies? Then in the article, it says most likely you're a questioner, because you feel the need to question, like, hey, do I really display upholder tendencies in this scenario? Do I display an obliger tendency at this scenario? So more than likely, I think she might be right. You sound like a questioner, Carrie. But everyone needs to take the quiz and answer it honestly, so that you can know for sure, and then see which direction you tip towards.
Yeah, and definitely try to get the audiobook and read through the book. And she's got a lot of articles on the blog that you can go through as well, because you do have to make sure that you're answering them honestly as possible, because like someone took the test a second time and they they came up with something that they're definitely not. So,
Mm-hmm.
but it is very hard for you to figure it out through the test what you lean to, and you can lean very heavily. Like 50% of the things in the book for upholder, I am 50% of it, like no doubt. But 100% of what is in the book about questioner, I am all of it.
Yeah, and I took yes, big leanings toward questioner. So I took the test 4 times just to make sure that I came back a questioner. I came back a questioner all 4 times.
Only a questioner would have to take it 4 times.
Well, I just wanted to make sure that it was valid. So, Tashina, you mentioned that you are a questioner that leans towards an upholder. So one of the things, and I feel like Dana's kind of in this boat too, because you have some upholder tendency. So one of the things about an upholder in this business is they, if you set an expectation for an upholder, then they take it almost as gospel. So you have to be very, very careful about setting expectations with an upholder. So, for example, if you say something like, okay, I'll give you a prime example. If someone says that, hey, I'm going to get my kit on Tuesday, in their mind, okay, kit on Tuesday. So now Tuesday comes and they contact the person and they're like, oh, well, I was thinking around Tuesday, so it might be Thursday or Friday. In their head, they're thinking liar.
See, and I will say that's where, like, hands down, like, because to me, even little stuff like, I don't understand why people need reminders for events. I don't understand why people need reminders for, like, because I'm like, if you said, like, I'm going to be here at this time, then you're going to be there at that time, right? Like, you put it in your calendar, like, you schedule it, and you uphold whatever it is you say you're going to do.
So upholders don't mix very well with obligers. I will say that.
Here's the thing, though. I mean, I'm the same way, too. Like, I think that was a huge, like, I didn't understand the need for team calls or for meetings or whatever because I'm a questioner and I don't need any outside accountability. But to me, like, now that it's been explained to me and I understand the reason, like, I mean, okay, you guys need accountability. So, all right, let's get that done. You know, like, it's not something that I can't understand. The rebels are the ones I can't understand whatsoever. Obligers, okay, you need accountability. Let me know what you need and I'll hold you accountable. I don't have a problem with that.
We don't always understand ourselves either, Tashina.
So, and here's the other thing to realize that's interesting. When we're talking about tendencies, sometimes they can be modified by your personality too.
Yeah.
But your tendency is it's not necessarily influenced by your upbringing. Your tendency is what it is. Like, this is your natural born tendency that you were born with, and it is only modified in some aspects by your personality. So that's the exterior factor. But yeah, upholders, you have to be very, very careful about setting expectations. If you're, especially the reason that an upholder has a hard time with rebels is because a rebel is really, really bad typically at follow through. Because they don't want, there's no commit, they don't want to commit. If you ask them, hey, can you commit to doing a class on this date? Nope, I can't commit to that. So just recognize that if you are dealing with someone who is an upholder and you are a rebel, just be very, very careful about setting that expectation. Even when this was another, not committal. So this was another thing that I kind of thought about when I was reading the book. Sometimes especially when it comes to your business, sometimes we might meet a person and we're like, I feel they would be so good at this business, or I feel like the oils are right up their alley. Think about this. If an upholder, if the person you're thinking about is an upholder and you say to them, hey, you would be so good at this business, an upholder is saying, okay, I have to be good at this business, whether they really want to or not. So it sets that outside expectation that that's what you expect from them if they get started with Young Living. So just recognizing a person's tendency allows you to be careful with how you set expectations, especially for an upholder. All right. Oh, go ahead, Tashina.
The other thing that was interesting in the book, she mentioned how upholders are overrepresented in high income and rebels are overrepresented in low income. And we were talking about earlier how we couldn't find hardly any upholders on the team. And I remember in the book she was talking about how Steve Jobs, she was talking about him being a questioner, how he was a crackpot because he wanted to do alternative things for his cancer for the longest time. And she was like making fun of it as an upholder. So that's another thing, because upholders are generally very traditional. You know, it's hard for them to get started in network marketing, because I know all the upholders in my life, like my boss, our father, they think this is like the weirdest thing ever. Like they don't even, like it's not even something they would even look at. And then thinking about that too, like even Dana, she was the last family member to get in with her upholderness. So.
I mean, that's interesting to think about. I mean, really, when you think about that and dealing with business. So thank you for sharing that.
The other thing too, I was just thinking about the rebels also, your vibe attracts your tribe. And we got Julie and Leah as rebels. And then, you know, they attracted via, you know, Instagram or whatever, some other rebels. So your vibe attracts your tribe. Rebels.
Monica says she's a rebel too.
Yep.
Monica's a rebel?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's what she said.
So you guys found all of the, what, 14%?
Right. All right, so let's talk about that then, because we talked about the obligers and the upholders. Let's talk about what some of the rebels' struggles are. So usually the rebels are going to be very fun-loving. Like I mentioned, some of the weaknesses are they're extremely hard to follow because they can change gears like that. Like Dana mentioned, they typically tend to be on the lower end financially, just because they find it a hard time or have a hard time sticking to what needs to be done, even when they try to set that inner expectation for themselves. But like I mentioned, some of the strengths are they tend to be the people person. Like
and they're the innovators. They're right. The innovators. They're the ones that have their own businesses. A lot of times, with the rebels, though, they did it because everybody keeps doubting them. And they're like, wait, what? You said I can't be successful at this? I'm going to show you. Okay? Not only am I going to be successful, I'm going to be more successful than you. So your rebels are actually, though, like they are the, like, in the book, she was just talking about a lot of the things that, like, you know, when people really push the bar and set higher standards for things, it's usually the rebel that, like, kind of pioneers those things and goes beyond. And many times they are successful at running their own businesses. They might, you know, need other people to do the stuff that they don't want to do, but they are, I don't want to say smart enough, but they like, they're innovative enough to find the people to do the things that they don't want to do.
So in that vein, in this business is very good that's why we mentioned that the Rebels team very, very good with the obligers, because if they can find a way to navigate the differences in their tendencies, they're very good at getting somebody else to carry out their vision. So just keep that in mind. Go ahead, Kate. You have your hand up.
So yeah, so I'm an obliger, or I'm in a rebel, but I have some obliger tendencies. And what you were given as the example of like, oh, hey, can you just order me that? Like, that's the difficulty for me. Like, that's the way I'm an obliger, but I'm totally rebel in like not gonna do what you expect me to do. Like, if someone tells me to do something, I'm not gonna do it, even if I wanted to do it before. And so I just had an example of this yesterday. My best friend is a questioner upholder combination. And so she was like bringing me research and like all this stuff, trying to tell me what to do. And I was just getting so aggravated with her that today I did exactly what I didn't want to do because she was trying to convince me of the opposite.
Yep, just to spite her.
Yeah, so like just to spite her. And then it actually worked out really well for me. But my roommate is an obliger, and she just signed up with me like a couple of days ago. And she has like is now interested in, because I'm like telling her all this stuff, we've done 2 one-on-ones with her friends And it's like, she's just like, show me what to do and let's do it. And, you know, if she pushes me, then I don't want to do it. But like, I was excited, and now she's like, okay. And so we're doing it together way more than I have ever done myself, because now I have someone to like kind of do it where it's boring for me.
Mhm. And that's hands down why the rebel partners very, very well with the obliger. Not saying that you want to boss people around, but you like the idea of choice, choosing
Yeah.
to do what you want to do when you want to do it. So,
Consistency and monotony are boring for me,
mhm.
and she thrives on it, so it works really well.
See, so you find her to execute your vision. You find the obliger to help execute your vision. I will say for the people that are on here, they're probably like, oh, how do I deal with these rebels? So one thing about a rebel is, and I can attest to this, this is like me doing my self-discovery and being like, this makes so much sense now that because I'm a questioner that leans towards rebel, um, I constantly have to be given choice. The moment that you try to tell me how to do something in a specific manner, I'm in my head, I'm like, nope, I don't want to do it. Number one, as a questioner, I say because there's more than one way to skin a cat. But tipping towards rebel, I'm saying just because you asked me to do it that specific way, I don't want to do it.
And that's pretty much our whole life.
Mm-hmm. So with a rebel, you have to give choices and consequences, and then allow them to make the decision. So an example is, let's say that somebody's ER or somebody's account is about to go inactive, and you want them obviously to stay on. You want that volume. You want them to be on ER. Instead of calling and saying, hey, your ER didn't process, you need to place your ER order. A rebel's not going to, I can tell you right now, a rebel's not going to respond to that. You can say something to the extent of, hey, I notice your ER or your account is about to go inactive. If it goes inactive, you will lose out on all your ER points. You will lose your ability to go to purchase products at wholesale, and you have to lay out the consequences for them, and then use the question, what do you want to do about it? And then allow them to make the choice. When a rebel feels like they're being allowed to be who they are, and be expressive of their personality in that moment, that's when they're most productive.
And we actually had an example of that very specific thing because his mother is definitely a rebel. And last month, it was like they were going on vacation. We reminded her like weeks in advance, like your ER didn't process, your ER didn't process. She didn't respond whatsoever. She did not place her order. She lost all of her points, went back to whatever percentage she is. And then she placed one this month.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So for a rebel, a lot of times it is about consequence. And until for them, they see that the choices that they made led to this specific outcome, usually they won't make that choice. That's good because I'm about to go in.
Yeah. So again, for a rebel, it was the information, the consequences, and then give them the choice.
Well, there you go, Carrie. Try that, see if that works. All right, so so Leah popped on. I know Leah's a rebel. Leah, do you have anything you want to share?
First, let me apologize. We had our assembly, and I have my in-laws in town, so by the time we got back, got dinner made, and everybody to sleep. I'm sorry I'm late getting on, and sitting outside because it's the only quiet place for me to really go in my house where I'm not disturbing somebody. So, hello. And yes, my name is Leah Jervis, and I am a rebel.
Hi, Leah. Welcome. So some of the information that we shared about the rebels and some of their struggles within this business, do you find that those were pretty accurate?
Yes, but it works to our advantage in a lot of ways because I feel like when I wasn't going to buy the kit, you guys probably have all heard my story. There's no way my mother was going to get me to buy the kit. She bought it for me. And like you said, it's the consequences. So initially it's like you couldn't get me to try them because I didn't want to believe it. But then once I had them and I tried it and was wowed by it, I couldn't shut up. and not only that, once I embraced the idea that I was going to do this, nothing was going to stop me. Nothing was, I'm like, I had it in my mind that I wanted to hit silver. I heard about the silver and six and how to win all those oils. And it was like, and rebels, I think, are generally motivated by those kinds of things. Like, we need a time set goal specific. And once we have it, it's easier to grab onto it. Otherwise, like she just mentioned, like Kate just mentioned, we get bored. We get bored really quick. And so it helps to have like a goal with a time to it and that we know what we want. For example, this month you get 10 points, you get a rose oil. That's a great short-term goal for a rebel. I think we would do well with it because if we decide we want it, we go for it. And we give it our everything. I think it's why I'm like prone to wanting to give people those kinds of incentives because they work. I know they don't work for everybody, but like for me, the rebel, the blue, it's like those things get me totally psyched out. I'm like, yes. So.
Yeah, I agree. Those are, was it Carrie or Kate? Carrie mentioned that that's good consequences. I don't think you were here for this, Leah, but most of the people on this call are either rebels or obligers, with a small percentage of questioner, which is me and Tashina. So obligers and rebels work very, very good together. Your obligers are more likely to follow the rebel if the rebel can stay consistent. So thank you for sharing that. That is very good. I do want to keep the call moving. Let's lastly talk about the questioner. I know that it is only the small percentage, which is Tashina and I. But I do want to maybe help people understand how to deal with us questioner types. So we talked about the questioner only meets their own expectations. They don't meet outer expectations. So when someone expects them to do something without giving them enough information, they are not going to do it. They need to see the purpose and the reason why they're doing anything and make it clear why it's important. So they're kind of, when I think of it, it's kind of synonymous with the green for the Myers-Briggs. Like we have to, what's that?
Myers-Briggs is
Okay, I'm sorry. Well, the color personality test. But we have to have enough information. So when you're communicating with a person who is a questioner, sometimes what happens is the person, an upholder might feel like they're questioning their authority. They may sometimes butt heads with the rebel because they do ask questions. And some people that can be very, very annoying for her, especially in Gretchen's book, she talks about in the workplace for a boss, a questioner usually feels like they're threatening their title. But the interesting thing about a questioner is questioners don't like to be questioned. So as a questioner, I can tell you that we do a lot of research. Questioners usually feel that they're usually right because most of the time they are. That's just some of the experiences that they've had. So with a questioner, if they make a decision, usually it's not just on a whim that they've made the decision. Usually it's the fact that they've questioned that expectation within themselves and then decided to make a move. So when someone questions it, usually we're pretty annoyed. We're like, I don't feel like I need to explain this to you. I have very good reasons why I feel like I'm doing this and why this needs to be done. Leave me alone and just let it play out and everything will be fine. So with a questioner, we talked about, sometimes having to pause and take in all that information can cause them to be a little slower to make moves sometimes because we do want to take in that information. But with a questioner, you definitely have to explain, oh, I hate having to justify my choice. Oh yeah, Carrie. That is one of the other things about a questioner. So a questioner will justify why something does or does not have to get done. So when it comes to this business, a questioner might appear to be an obliger. Maybe they're like, I just want to get out and actually go talk to people or actually do something. But until they've justified in their head that the the end result outweighs the means, they won't make a move. So when you're communicating with a questioner, you have to be willing to, number one, answer their questions, but also give them the valid reasons why you're asking something of them. And then allow them to, usually they'll go ahead and fulfill it. So,
I just want to add something. When you're talking about valid reasons, one of the distinct things that me reading the book the second time that I'm understanding very clearly, rebels are real big on their identity and questioners are real big on their facts. Like you leaning towards rebel, I'm leaning towards upholder. I'm completely into the facts. So a valid reason is not everyone is excited about it. Like that's not a reason to me. That's a reason that's going to make me do the opposite because most people do the wrong thing all the time. Or this really resonates with me. Or this is going to be fun. That's not a valid reason. What are the results? What are the facts? What are we going to get from that? That is what a valid reason is. When we put something, the best way to get me involved in something is for us to have a discussion about it so I can ask all the questions, get my questions answered. Sending me some information and saying this is what we're going to do is usually a way for me to fall into what they call reactance. Like I'm going to be like, okay, the answer is no because I wasn't involved. I didn't get to ask all my questions.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes sense. I totally agree with that, Tashina, but that's because we're the small questioner group. So Kate asked an interesting question. She says, I need help figuring out how to appeal to a questioner. She uses oils, but is absolutely not convinced sufficiently that they work that well or that YL is the best. I don't understand at all why it's not already clear to her. Kate, as a questioner, I can tell you that you probably have not given her enough reasons why or enough valid information why. And to Tashina's point, you mentioned something, Tashina, about if somebody says, oh, because it's fun, that's not a valid reason. Or because everybody's doing it, oh, that's not a valid reason. Doesn't mean that it's right. So with an example like this is a great, and this is the reason I read this question off, because this is a great question. Those individuals, they need to have all of the information. Need more input, never too much info. Yeah, we need to have all the information, all the facts, so that we can be allowed to make that decision, and it has to be logical. So Tashina brought out a good point. Has she listened to a one-on-one CD? Get her a one-on-one CD. Anything that is that's going to answer her questions, especially when it comes to like why Young Living's oils are different than any other oil out there. Even if she doesn't know, yeah, that's a good point. So Tashina in the chat, if you can't see, she mentions that that one-on-one has experts on it. Like she may not see you as the expert because if you're not a questioner, then she's probably thinking that, oh, this person hasn't done their research and they don't know what they're talking about. Get them in front of an expert or get them enough information and that will change their mind.
And she doesn't even ask specific questions, because if she asks specific questions, I could do research and give her specific answers. But I think she's already like shut down to the point where she's like, doesn't even think it's like worth asking specific questions. But then when she wants something, she'll be like, oh, what should I do for this? And then shuts down again.
So if she's anything like me as a questioner, and I don't know if she is, but usually I would prefer it if people give me all of the information, and then as my questions come up, that I have the ability to go look and find the answer to that question. So if you can equip her with resources, because if someone asks me, do you have any questions? Typically I'm like, no, not right now. But when I do, I need to be able to have a resource that I can go to get my questions answered that's not you.
And then also remember, you have to then, with those questions, like, I would say give them, similar to the rebel, because she might be a questioner that leans to rebel, like give them choices at that point. So then it's like, this is the information. Does this seem reasonable that this oil would do this versus, one that at the store doing this? Like, so then she's making the decision or coming to the conclusion like, oh, I guess that doesn't make sense that, it says not for internal use and it's supposed to be lemon. Or, oh, I guess this does make more sense that you guys have a whole vitality line. I'm just using that as an example, but whatever her thing is, like, where it's not really that much better or makes that big of a difference.
Yeah. Because at the end of the day,
what's her color personality type? What's her color personality type?
I'm not sure because I don't know. I think that she's red green or green red. She's not super detailed. She's very like outgoing people person, but at the same time, like, she does research constantly and is always like sending me research to tell me what to do. So I'm not exactly sure her color type, but I'm thinking red green or green red.
Okay. All right. I'll send you the link to Sarah Harnish's, because I mean she talks about how she has 4 aromatherapy degrees and she gets into all the details of it.
Okay.
But yeah, she's gonna, like, all of us questioners took a long time to get into. Like, I saw all the stuff online. And I was already a no. I was a no for 9 months. The only way to not have me be a no was to get all the oils on my body. And for me to fill it, you need to not answer any of her little questions. Like, she's got to use the oils and she's got to get the information. The home party that I went to, they had pages and pages and pages and pages of info.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she uses oils a little bit here and there, but she's never had an experience that affected her enough.
And remember that questioners only meet that inner expectation. So they ultimately have to have enough information for them to say, okay, this is what I want for myself. Dana can testify that when she got started with using oils and she kept telling me about how great they smelled, I could care less. And when she was like, it's time to go, we need to go to convention in Salt Lake City, I could care less. But until I got the information at some of the classes, then that's when I was all in. So the questioner, you have to give them those resources and allow them to make that decision still themselves with enough information. Does that help? Okay.
If I may contribute, Anthony, I love that Kate asked that question. And I love that, I'm sorry you can't see me. I love that she asked that question, and I love that the people on the call are trying to truly understand personalities deeply, because it gives us the ability not only just to understand other people, but to see ourselves in maybe more of a true light. How do we come across to other people? And what can I do now? The obliger comes as the example in my mind. What can I do now to help motivate myself? Because the obliger usually needs somebody to work with or an accountability partner. That's kind of what comes up in my head. How can I use this knowledge now to help me along this path to get to my goal? And I love that Kate asked that question, because it really works twofold for all of us.
Oh yeah. I mean, this took the test 3 times. It says it. So, I mean, I like that we're getting this interaction. That's the goal with this call, to be able to help you guys and help everybody to be able to be successful. So thank you for asking that question. Hopefully that helps, Kate. Leah, it sounds like you got some lot of pairing to do with some of these obligers out here. Carrie,
yeah, the other thing is, one of the things that was mentioned on one of the CDs that was really clear too, and she kept saying, especially her as an upholder and being one of the smaller groups, she kept saying, everyone is different from us, more different from us than we suppose, and everyone is more like us. So we hate when we get put in categories because we're individuals, but then when it comes to interacting with people, we think everybody thinks like us. And we got to remember, 41% of the people are obligers, 24% are questioners, and usually if you can formulate something that they can understand, the upholders will understand it too, because they meet both. So when you're communicating to other people, you have to try to keep that in mind. If you're the one trying to get a message across, it's your job to communicate in the language that they need. And that's why, knowing that I have rebels on my team, like, I listened to it a second time, and knowing that most people are obligers, I have to make sure that I'm on these Zoom calls. I have to make sure that I support my team in in-person classes because 50% of the people on the team need that. They need accountability. Like obligers have to have accountability. So we have to be doing something for them on a monthly and weekly basis, whether our, tendency needs that or not, because that's what's going to make our business work. That's what 50% of our business is.
Good point, Tashina. Excellent point. So thank you for sharing that. Okay, so we are at 9:22. Does anybody have anything that they want to address? Carrie, I did see your message. So Carrie very briefly was talking about that her husband can't get past the pyramid scheme mentality. She believes that he is a clear-cut upholder, and it's really, really hard for you to get in gear by yourself. So
An upholder that asks a million questions, though.
An upholder, so maybe he's a questioner that leans towards upholder, or upholder that leans towards questioner. Yeah, so think about how a questioner responds and what an upholder. So, Tashina, you have something you want to chime in on that?
Yeah, I honestly, like, he's got to get around other men that can explain it to him. Part of the block is a lot of times women can't explain the questions in a way that a man can understand. Even me, questioner to Anthony, there was one point where I was like, this is going nowhere. He has to get to convention. I have to get him in front of Scott. That's the only way that it's going to get fixed. Because we keep talking about all these details and all these, things that are going to happen. And that's not what the men want. He wants to clearly understand the business side and have validity to it. And you're going to need another man to explain that to him.
So get him around other men. Go ahead, Carrie.
I don't know. Is my sound working?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, first time. Huh? Yeah, actually, he has zero interest whatsoever in being in the business. He just keeps asking me, when are you going to make money? If you're going to do this. But I've clearly said, I need help, someone to show me how to do this. And he offers no suggestions. So, that's why I got you guys. And this is great. But in an unspoken way, his dogmatism and critical doubting really stifles my creativity and my forward moving energy. And I don't know how you pass that. I keep coming back to it every time.
Carrie.
So I love what you said about getting some guys out there. And it's interesting because I used oils for like over 15 years. His brother started using oils like, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years ago, different company. Oh, Carrie, what's a good oil for this? What's good about? Oh, now oils are okay. Because a guy,
Carrie,
said something about oil.
Your tendency was rebel, correct?
Yeah, sure, whatever.
That maybe leans towards questioning. I think we were trying to figure that out.
Yeah, somewhere halfway.
So from that aspect, it's going to be very difficult for you to understand that thought process. But from the description too, it sounds like maybe he might also be a red type personality. And speaking from a male perspective,
yeah, I'm not up on
so your struggle, remember we talked about what your struggles are going to be as a rebel in this business. But I can tell you as a husband and as a man, we need to see the money first and we need to see your actions. So however you have to set that expectation, I really recommend that everybody read Gretchen Rubin's book because it addresses specifically how a rebel should deal with something like that, finding that motivation to work. But also from the male perspective, most of the male won't believe it until we see it. So here's the choices. You can get the book and read about how to become productive as a rebel, or you can stay in the same position and have him continue to doubt you. Your choice.
Don't give me that choice.
Let me throw in my 2 cents. One, I agree with Tashina on that part, that it does help for them to get around somebody that they feel they could relate to. So even though they might be married to us, it doesn't always help for them to hear us telling about it. It's, that doesn't usually work. So for my husband, that didn't work. And then what Anthony said is true too. With Teddy, that was his same question to me. Carrie was, show me the money. I need to see it working before I'm going to believe it. And so that was part of my motivation as a rebel, because that's part of what motivates rebels is, well, fine, you don't trust me, you don't believe me that it can happen. I'm going to not just show you I could do it, but I'm going to make it, I'm going to like go all in. And I felt like, I had a little bit of that from my husband, and I had a lot of that from my dad. And so I felt like I had something to prove as a rebel.
There you go. Does that resonate with you, Carrie, from rebel to rebel?
Yeah, it does. And I guess just coming out of chronic illness too, and energy is my low point. I just can't maintain the energy to, break out of that force field and move on.
But
so I guess I need more white angelica. Anybody got some white angelica they could send down Ecuador? Okay, thanks. That'd be great.
Yeah. Hang in there. I mean, definitely take some of those things into consideration. Hopefully that helps. All right.
Yeah.
So I hate to cut people off, because I know this is a topic we can continue to talk on and on.
Yeah, that's great.
About. It is an excellent topic, so that's why I really encourage everyone to get the book and read it to find out even more about your own tendency and how to deal with others. But very quickly, let's talk events for the week. If you have anything that you want to promote. Tuesday on the 7th, we will be doing our bi-weekly team event. This one's going to be really, really fun for those in the Metro Detroit area. We're going to be cooking with oils, and so there will be food. We will be doing an intro to oils presentation, but bring your favorite oil to trade. Bring friends, bring brand new people. It's going to be more of a social fun event, so just keep that in mind that we are doing that Tuesday the 7th. The address is actually posted in the Google Drive doc. Any other events for this week that you want to promote between here and there?
Yeah, I'll be doing the one-on-one on Facebook in Spanish on Tuesday.
All right, good. And Carrie says she's invited 40 of her closest Hispanic friends for that, so excellent.
I'll be there. I hope. Power, if it holds out, connection, I'll be there. Hope some of them can come.
All right.
Get some momentum here.
All right, so does anyone have any other events they want to promote?
Shannon's event. I just want to say Shannon's thing.
Yeah, make sure you get your tickets.
Leaders, do you still have tickets for that event?
Yes.
I do.
Tashina, do you?
Yes. I mean, I just sent out my postcards like 2 days ago, so.
I think I have 4. Okay. Maybe 3 or 4 tickets.
Tashina, do you know how many tickets you have? Or?
I have all of them.
Okay. Fair enough. All right.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Can someone just elaborate a little bit on Shannon's event that's going on? I know there's a few leaders that do have tickets, but can you expand on it a little bit for us new ones?
Tashina, you want to take that one?
Yeah, so Shannon Hudson is a diamond here in the Michigan area. There are people that come in town for it. I know Monica sometimes comes in. I know Julie will be here. It is like a rally times 50. Not quite like convention, but she has at least 6 diamonds and a doctor that's going to be coming, and we really appreciate it, and it really is worth coming in town for, because there's a lot of classes I didn't have to see at convention because she's already had those speakers here for us. So like I didn't get to see Dr. Benjamin Perkis at convention, but I'll get to see him here. She's going to have Bethany Shipley, who is the youngest diamond currently and did it like super fast. She's going to have 3 other diamonds. So it's on the 17th and the 18th. It's a Friday, Saturday. Even if I have to work and I can't get off Friday, her tickets are like $35 and it's like $150 worth of information. If I can only get there for 2 hours on a Saturday, I'm there.
If I could tack onto what Tashina said, and Tashina, you'll probably totally agree with me. We drove all the way out to, where was that, St. Cloud? And we're all like, Shannon's events are better. And we paid like $150, I forgot, like $150 or $200 for that ticket. We're like, wow.
For Scott and
It was-
Brenda's to do the same
Yeah.
type of event, we drove to Minnesota for it and paid $150 for the same type of event.
Yes.
Yeah. Shannon's events are phenomenal. They've got something for every color, personality type, tendency. So yeah, they are a blast. So if you are able to attend, try to get there. Okay, anything else before we close out the call? No. Okay. All right. Well, thank you everybody for being on the call tonight. Great interaction. Hopefully you guys found something of value to take back and try within the next week. And when we come back next week, feel free to let us know how that's worked out as we look forward to more of the convention recap. But I'll set everybody loose and we'll see everybody on the call next week. So then have a good night and have a good week.
Thank you so much. You guys do a great job.
No problem. Good night.
Good night.